Hello, we're going to present the design of our jar and affective test with consumers of our group product, which is in this case chocolate chip cookies.
So, in order to properly analyze the different ingredients and properties of the chocolate chip cookies, we decided to use six different products that have a different amount of seals. We have cookies that range from having only one seal to up to four seals in the Hill Country Fair chocolate chip cookies.
Regarding our test design, we chose panelists that were cookies consumers between the ages of 19 and 23 years old, both male and female. And our sample presentation format, we gave one fourth of a cookie to each participant of each sample and used plates to designate the different sample numbers. Also, we used water for palate cleanser and galleta habanera. And the conditions of the samples were at room temperature about 25 degrees Celsius. Here is the link to our jar and hedonic test, which you can see which type of format we use and the different images that are in the test.
So, in this test, we included both jar and hedonic questions since it was an effective test. And for the jar questions, we used five distinct levels in order to work within the panelists' boundaries since they're consumers, and so that this way we wouldn't overwhelm their senses. For this category, we included color, cracking sound intensity, sweetness, and saltiness as our questions. And then for the hedonic questions, we also used five different levels in which the consumers or the panelists could indicate their level of likingness of the product. And in here, they were supposed to evaluate the amount of chocolate chips and the chocolate aroma for each cookie. Here is a sample of what the two questions look like. In the jar, we can see that it goes up to five and it's too light, slightly right, just right is in the middle, and slightly dark and too dark are four and five. And for the hedonic, number three is the neither like nor dislike, and number five is like very much.
The first question is, how do you perceive the color of sample X? And now here our objective is to assess the preferred intensity of caramelization. This is a jar question. So our hypothesis is that the brands with a label that says sugar excess will have a significantly higher number of just about right answers compared to the other brands. Our second question is, how much do you like the amount of chocolate chips in sample X? And now here, this is a hedonic scale question. The objective of this question is to determine the level of preference for the number of chocolate chips for each cookie. And the hypothesis is that the brands with excess saturated fats will have a significantly different preference compared to the brands that lack this label. Our third question is, how do you perceive the intensity of the cracking sound in sample X? Now, this is a jar question where the objective is to assess the preferred intensity of crispy texture when cracking the cookie for each brand. And our hypothesis is that the amount of saturated fat and sugar will have a significant correlation with the intensity of the crispy texture, meaning that the more sugar or saturated fat in the cookie, the crispier it's going to be.
In question number four, we have how much do you like the chocolate aroma in sample N? The objective of this question is to assess the preferred intensity of chocolate aroma for every cookie brand, and our hypothesis is that the amount of chocolate and fat will have a significant correlation with the intensity of the chocolate aroma. Ergo, the more chocolate and the less fat, the stronger the chocolate aroma will be. In question number five, we have how do we perceive the sweetness in sample N? The objective of this question is to assess the preferred intensity of sweetness in tasting for each cookie brand. The hypothesis is that the amount of sugar and their sweeteners will have a significant relation with the intensity of sweetness. Ergo, the more sugar or sweeteners, the sweeter the cookie will be. And for our last question, we have how do we perceive the saltiness in sample number N? The objective is to assess the preferred intensity of saltiness when tasting each cookie brand, and our hypothesis is that the amount of sodium will have a significant correlation with the intensity of saltiness. Ergo, the more sodium, the saltier the cookie will be.
Regarding the data interpretation, after we collect the data, we will process it into frequency distribution histograms that explain the liking of the attributes on each brand. Then we will calculate the basic set of summary statistics of each sample, for example, the mean, the median, the standard deviation, and the standard error. Finally, we will apply a principal component analysis to summarize the collected data in few dimensions. This visual characterization will facilitate the identification of similarities and differences among the products that were evaluated by panelists. Okay, based on what it was previously said, here we have the frequency distribution histogram and the basic set of summary statistics. This one is presented on a table. No, not all of these examples are related to food analysis, but the format will help us and facilitate our data interpretation. Finally, this slide presents a figure of a principal component analysis.